this is George Williams from Left Man Production Squared, and tonight we are here to talk about the mission and relationship systems for Odyssian. And these will be the two systems we'll talk about, and then we'll progress on talking about planets, which will be in its own video. Another long one like with the battle video series. So, the mission system is going to be kind of complex. It's kind of like EVE Online. In order to undertake missions, you'll have to go to stations to talk to NPCs. These could be mission brokers in like the mission offices or whatever. They'll have some sort of interesting name, but I haven't thought of what it'll be yet. So they'll be like NPCs. I'll give you missions like the agents in EVE Online. You can also go to the field offices for whatever empire you're allied with, or have an alliance with. In other words, whatever empire you belong to or already have an alliance or are friendly with. If they exist on that station, you can go to bars, you can go to bounty office, a bunch of different places you can get missions from. Even missions that will kind of self-create them, be self-generating, if you will. Like, you might be flying around in an area of space, and there might be some randomly generated thing that will kind of be added to your map as like a point of interest to go examine. Like maybe ship that might just be floating around out there or something like that, or maybe some sort of ship graveyard or like a destroyed station or something like that. That's just something that would be, a point of interest that you might want to explore. Or you might have emissions generated from like having a pirate come up and like essentially mug you, knock your ship out and steal your cargo or something. You'd have a mission that would be for, getting back your cargo or something like that. So, there are going to be a lot of different ways to get missions. In order to undertake more dangerous missions, you're going to have a sufficient level, sufficient cell, and rank. You'll have to meet some you'll have to meet requirements for. And you also have to sufficient trust with the mission agent, mission broker that you are, working with to so they give you that mission, or they feel that you're trustworthy enough to do the mission, complete the mission successfully or correctly. There are going to be different types of missions. Obviously, you're going to have the main missions, which are going to be missions covering all the different types of missions, but they'll be related to the story for the game. You won't be required to do the main missions. Like with Skyrim, you're not required to do the main quest line. Same thing here. You won't be required to do the main missions, but you'll be able to get some stuff that you won't be able to get anywhere else. Plus the free ship kills and experience as well, and resources. So there are strong reasons to do the main missions, but you don't have to. So the other mission types are gathering missions, courier missions, bounty missions, and exploration missions. And some of these break down into subsets of the different main mission types. So gathering missions are broken down into two different categories. These are mining missions and missions where you're going to get an item from somewhere. Say like you need to get loot from an enemy that you have to go destroy somewhere, or you have to bring back so many units of whatever from stealing from ships or destroying ships, pirates and whatnot, to get the materials, or buying them, or even trading for them. How you get the item that they're requesting, or the items they're requesting, doesn't really matter as long as you get them. And there'll be many different ways you can get them. For the mining missions, it's just basically you go out, mine ore, or buy ore, or trade for ore and bring it back, and you'll get your reward for that. Usually for the mining missions, the reward will be a certain percentage of the cut of the processed resources. Reprocessed resources, rather, I should say. So, go have a look at the mining videos for a little more in-depth discussion on how that all works. Reprocessing and stuff like that. So, let's see. Gathering missions. Courier missions. These are where you are either taking an item somewhere, or maybe a message somewhere, or maybe not a message. That's more, warband kind of stuff, Mountain Blade stuff. So it wouldn't necessarily be a message, but it would be maybe an item, maybe some sort of content package that you had to personally download into a computer system. Obviously, it could be anything. You could say, "Oh, it's just this harmless video file." It turns out to be a insane virus or something. So, and it could also deal with taking people as well, like being a taxi service or even smuggling slaves or something. Depends on the mission. For bounty missions, these are missions where you have a specific target and you are hunting that target. Depending on the difficulty level of the target, you may or may not have to have a time limit on finding that target. For example, the current kind of demo mission I have for bounty missions is called the Wolf. It's essentially made to be like a rank Class A difficulty bounty. In other words, one of the more difficult bounties. And you have a certain amount of time that you have to try and find this guy before the tips and information you get from the mission broker and what you can find, extra clues you can find, become irrelevant because he'll have moved on to another location and you'll have to try and figure out, try and piece together his trail and figure out where he's gone to. For less difficult ones, though, generally they will be less experienced and maybe not quite as, shall we say, intelligent. So they may stick around in areas for longer periods of time or indefinitely. And so what will happen is that you'll either be required to bring in the target alive, or you can bring them dead. If you bring them in alive, you actually get a larger bounty than if you bring them in dead. But you have to bring in either the corpse or something from the corpse when you decide to kill them or blow their ships up. Otherwise, you won't get your reward for the kill because you won't be able to verify it. And no, you won't have to get out in some sort of spacesuit and rub a feather in the blood of the person or something. That'd just be insane. So, for exploration missions now, these also break down into, I think, 3 different types of missions. So, one type of mission is where you are just kind of scouting ahead for maybe a war fleet or a supply fleet, or shipping kind of freighter or something that has something that's of value, and they want to see if there's anything along the chart they have, the course they have chartered, that could potentially be a threat or something, or to scout enemy movements or locations and stuff like that. The second type of exploration mission is a mission where you are exploring an unvisited system for a particular person, whether it be an empire or a company or something. You're just going there and kind of seeing what's there at that time. So it's kind of similar to the scouting missions, but not quite the same. Different objective. Just the objective The objective of this is just to go to the system and see what's there, not necessarily scouting for information or looking for enemies or something. Just go there and see, what types of stuff is being traded from that system, traffic levels, that kind of stuff. More generic information. And the last type of exploration mission is a mission to explore an unexplored area of space. Now, this whole process of exploring unexplored space happens in 3 different ways. Either you can do it on your own. I'll talk more about all this. I've talked a little bit about it before in the first video for this introductory series. I'll also talk about more in the exploration video. But you either can explore it yourself, allow the game to explore it for you, because as time goes on, more systems will be unlocked, or undertake missions from entities to explore unknown space. Now, for this the third option, which is relevant here, you'll get a reward if you go explore the area, bring back information, and give it to them. You'll also be forced to sign a contract that says that you won't go back to that system after you've explored it and take advantage of any of the resources there, whether it be valuable minerals and ores, or derelict things and ships and stations and whatnot. You won't go in and take anything out of there. For example, that anything you find belongs to that interior corporation. Of course, you can double backstab them, double cross them. But if it's found out that you've done that, then obviously your relationship with that entity or corporation or whatever will decrease. And also, you might also then end up on the wanted list for the Telerath for stealing stuff. Obviously, it won't always happen that way, but with this, it might be because in this instance, it's proprietary property of that particular corporation or whatever. Obviously, if somebody else steals it, it's nothing that happens to you. But if you try and take it, it is because you're obligated by a contractual agreement that you wouldn't do that. So those are the 3 types of exploration missions. Now, there are different aspects to these mission types that you'll have to consider depending on other things going on. For example, for courier missions, whether or not the path you choose, how you choose the path you're going to take to the destination will depend on how comfortable you are taking that particular merchandise or person or whatever to the destination, and how high or low the security ratings are for the systems you're going through. And when I say high or low is because you could also be transporting contraband that would cause you to be pursued by the Telerath if they scanned your ship and found it on it. So in that instance, you might want to stay out of higher security space and opt for either medium security or lower security space. On the other hand, if you're transporting something that's like more valuable than everything you own times 10,000 or something, something that's like worth trillions of Zarn or something, you probably would want to stick to really high security systems. And so that would affect the amount of time it would take for you to complete the mission that you're on, courier mission. Likewise, not all missions are going to be revolving around stuff that's legal. Like, for example, some missions might have you hacking into stations or ships, or stealing stuff, or assassinations of, like, not just wanted bounties, but also politicians and stuff like that. It just depends on where you're getting the missions from. In general, if you're getting the missions from the pub, those are generally going to be more kind of in the gray zone to even being malicious in nature. Whereas missions through mission brokers and offices and whatnot, field offices and whatnot, are going to be more above board and not, usually not within the gray zone at all. And definitely not, illegal in nature. So it's just up to you to what you want to do, because as I have been saying, and will continue to say, all the stuff you do and anything you do in this game has effects on at least one other thing. So anytime you complete a mission that, say you're doing a mission that to assassinate some parliament member or something, you're going to degrade your relationship with the galactic government. 2, you're going to degrade your relationship with the Telerath. And 3, you're going to degrade your relationship with whatever race that particular delegate was a part of. So that's an example of how one mission can have a great impact on 3 other major entities within the game that can make the game much harder for you, because you become more wanted and it's harder for you to move through higher security space. One other type of mission that doesn't really deal so much with getting missions from a person, but from the context of a planet, is a colonization mission. And these are special missions that you can only do after a colony has reached its apex stage. In other words, the final stage you can get to, whether it's industrial for whatever class it is to, I guess, Type 2 planet, or postmodern for Class 5 planet. And what this does is it essentially will take 20% of your population and some of the landmass and take that and colonize another world. And in doing so, and also some of the resources the planet has too, that you produced. And in doing so, you can start that particular planet you're colonizing in the industrial era, and progress from there if you can. If you can't, then it'll just stay in the industrial era, and you won't have to do any of the stuff to get to that point. It also means, though, that you have a slightly less determination on what the planet ends up, in the majority producing, whether it's, it can be a farming planet or water producing planet or what have you, because you won't have as much input at the very beginning of the colonization process. So there are some drawbacks to doing so, in addition to obviously taking almost a quarter of your population from the planet you started the colonizer mission from. Colonization mission from. So, but it's a way just to kind of quickly spread around your empire, or spread around the empire you are a part of. So let's go ahead and talk about the relationship system now. So the relationship mechanic is going to work pretty much like it does in EVE Online. Your actions will have an effect on your relations with other NPCs and other entities, and depending on that, different things will happen. If your relationship with a company is pretty bad, they own stations that you're using, you may be denied docking privileges, and the costs at those stations will be greatly increased. The opposite is also true, though, for if you're allied with that, have a good relationship or allied with that particular company or empire, the prices will be lower. In addition to that, as I mentioned before in some of the other sections, things like what types of enemies you find that have been sent to attack you from your enemies and how many ships there are will also be dependent on this relationship value, as well as how likely it is that mission brokers will give you really kind of lucrative missions. So just to kind of give you an example of the cost increase for like repairing your ship. Let's assume for a second that repairs usually cost, let's say by default, cost 1 unit of a couple of resources. Say 1 unit of diamonds, 1 unit of rubies, and 1 unit of draconic to repair, just by default. Let's say you have 10 units of damage to repair on your hull, or something like that. And let's say then you're going to a station where your relationship with them is -50, so about in the middle, on the lower end. The cost to repair your ship there might be anywhere from 10 units of resources per unit of repair to 30 units. So, anywhere from 10 to 30 times more expensive because of your relationship with that particular entity. Obviously, it's not going to be an actual real in-game example. That's just kind of giving you an idea of the cost ramping for negative relationship with the station owners if you need to repair a ship, and that can have a really large impact. Let's say that you get lost in unknown space for whatever reason, and those reasons you could end up being like that will be revealed later on. And you're going through a bunch of systems that have been explored and running into a lot of fights, and not really too many stations, and you haven't found a way back into known space yet. So let's say that it gets to a point to where if you get into another fight, you're going to get destroyed, and likely you're going to end up having a game over because you won't be anywhere in range of a station for using a clone. In this situation, you'd want to go repair a ship. But let's say that the only stations in this area that you're in are owned by either some hostile race or Musogalexicon or something who you've really made mad at you. Would they have stations, though, in unexplored space? So let's say you're coming out of unexplored space into explored space, but still null security. So null sec space. So you're still in a lot of danger, but there will be stations you can go to. And let's say you really made Musogalexicon mad, negative 90, relationship with them. And they are the only ones that have stations in, like, the nearest 7 systems or something. And so you try to dock at their stations, they're probably going to deny you entrance, docking privileges. So you're now stuck trying to keep away from pirates and not be attacked so you don't get blown out of the sky. Or if they let you in, the costs are going to be so high that you'll probably bankrupt yourself because it's going to cost so much to repair your ship. Because you'll have, anywhere from 70 to, several thousand units of damage. And if 1 unit of damage costs, 30 Zarin, 30 diamonds, 30 draconic, 30 rubies to repair, you're going to need a heck of a lot. Potentially millions in order to repair a ship, depending on what your stats are for the ship. So it has a really large impact in that regard. Also, entities that you have a bad relationship with may attack you or sabotage your stations and in general make your life difficult. If it's an empire that's mad with you, you might even end up at war with them, or your empire that you're part of might end up at war with that particular empire. Sorry, excuse me. So there are a lot of things that this relationship system can affect. And depending on what you do in the game, it can have a lot of different impacts, not only in, the kinds of things you can get or kinds of missions you can get, but also in how other entities within the game react to you, and also how those reactions to you can totally screw you over. And that's kind of the dynamic that I want to have, is that if you do bad things in the game, they're going to be really serious repercussions, and that might be fine for most people, but in some situations doing that will cause you to have a lot of extra grief, because you'll be dealing with situations that you wouldn't have to deal with otherwise if you hadn't pissed off Musogalexicon or something. So that's pretty much it for those two systems. Yeah. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you found it a little bit entertaining, or at least learned a little bit more about the game. And if you have any comments or suggestions or whatever, leave them below. And we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. And I will see you for the next video, where we will be covering planets.